There is a dragon flying in the sky. Are you aware of this? It should be noted by anyone who believes what the Bible says. It might not be what John saw in Revelation, but it is certainly the first dragon to fly up to heaven since the time when John wrote the book. So it is something that should be considered. Also, the SpaceX Dragon that flies up to the sky does it for NASA, to resupply their space station, and in the Revelation story, the dragon was giving power to a beast. What if it was the space station that John was seeing? It was deceiving the world. Is the space station deceiving the world? I think it is. It gives people hope for a future that doesn't and can't exist. Low Earth orbit is just a way that men have learned to climb into the sides of the pit. Heaven is up, but rockets don't go up to go to space, they go sideways to hell. To the sides of the pit. Isaiah 14:12-15 says this. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit.
Does Lucifer have your heart? Do you want what he wants? Do you know what he wants? The prophet Isaiah wrote specifically what Lucifer has in his heart. Do you also have this in your heart? I did. I was taught as a toddler to have the same thing in my heart that Lucifer has in his heart. You and I were taught since birth to give Lucifer our hearts. Do you know what Lucifer has in his heart? What is wickedness? What does it mean to have a wicked heart? What are wicked thoughts? Well, here's what Lucifer says in his heart. I will ascend into heaven. The people under King Nimrod that built the Tower of Babel also had evil hearts and wicked thoughts. There were 3 kinds of people, and they had 3 different kinds of wicked thoughts to build against the Lord God. The first said, we will ascend into heaven and fight against him. The second said, we will ascend into heaven and place our gods there and serve them. The third said, we will ascend into heaven and smite him with arrows and spears. What is space exploration? What are satellites? And what are rockets? Space exploration is only for those who have evil hearts and wicked thoughts to ascend into heaven and to do these things. Come out of her, my people, for her sins have reached up to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Lucifer says in his heart, I will ascend into heaven. That's what NASA says. We will ascend into heaven. That's what SpaceX says. We will ascend into heaven and place satellites there. Come out of her, my people. Nothing good will come of any of this. The fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. Corrupt are they, and have done abominable iniquity. There is none that doeth good. God looked down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there were any that did understand, that did seek God. Every one of them is gone back, they are altogether become filthy. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Have the workers of iniquity no knowledge, who eat up my people as they eat bread? They have not called upon God. There were they in great fear, where no fear was. For God hath scattered the bones of him that encampeth against thee. thou hast put them to shame, because God hath despised them. Oh, that the salvation of Israel were come out of Zion. When God bringeth back the captivity of his people, Jacob shall rejoice, and Israel shall be glad. Now know I that the Lord saveth his anointed. He will hear him from his holy heaven with the saving strength of his right hand. Some trust in chariots, and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. They are brought down and fallen, but we are risen and stand upright. Save, Lord, let the King hear us when we call. I have been debating Earth's rotation on YouTube recently, and it's making me think of something in a different way than I have before. There's another way to understand the physics in that place that they call space. It's not the same physics as it is on Earth, and I can explain by simply telling you that it can't be the same as the physics on Earth because everything is moving. The whole sky is moving. If you put something in the sky, you have to get moving. Then you put it in there and it continues to move perpetually because the sky is moving. We can look at a rocket launch going to the space station in order to better explain this. Currently, the astronauts at NASA are primarily flying on the Falcon 9 rocket in a Dragon capsule to get to the space station. The Falcon 9 is the rocket that brings the Dragon into orbit, and then it's the one that comes back and is reusable. And they landed on a drone ship or at a pad back where it launched. Each launch burns 29,600 gallons of fuel. The cost per launch for the Falcon 9 rocket is $62 million. And with the Crew Dragon, a cost per seat of $55 million per astronaut. At full power, the 9 Merlin engines consume 3,200 pounds of fuel and liquid oxygen per second and generate almost 850,000 pounds of thrust. If the appearance of the stars going in a circle is due to Earth's rotation, why is all this fuel needed and high velocity needed in order to go to the space station or to go into orbit? Well, obviously, the space station is traveling over the Earth at 17,500 miles an hour. So a rocket, say with astronauts on it, like the Falcon 9, needs to catch up to the space station. So it also needs to go from 0 miles per hour on the ground all the way up to a velocity matching that of the space station in order to dock with the station. So they need to catch up to it, and clearly the velocity needs to be reached, and it takes a lot of thrust, which takes a lot of fuel. So it takes a lot of fuel to get into orbit. So there's energy being used to go from 0 miles an hour into space, which is moving at a high velocity, any orbit. But once in orbit, almost no fuel is needed, and the conservation of momentum applies with almost no drag, so it keeps going close to the same velocity without burning any fuel. So if we were going to do any math here, we would see that the Dragon capsule and the astronauts and the space station and anything that goes into orbit from Earth started from 0 miles per hour. And once all that fuel is burned, it's clearly in another place that is constantly turning or moving and always stays there unless it's deorbited, unless it slows down. The Earth doesn't rotate. The sky rotates. Rockets start at 0 miles an hour and go into orbit, which is 17,500 miles an hour or faster. Anything in the sky, in space, is moving that fast. Everything. The whole sky is moving that fast. Enoch called it the path of the angels. NASA calls it low Earth orbit. Same thing. The stars turn. The sky turns. That's what we observe. We observe a stationary Earth beneath our feet. And I don't see why it's hard for people to acknowledge this. The people I've been debating with about this who think the Earth rotates tell me that I need to test it and I need to do the math, because otherwise I'm not right and the Earth is rotating. Well, look at it this way. We live on the ground, we build the rocket on the ground, which is not moving, and then we launch the rocket, which makes the rocket start moving. And then it goes up into the sky and stays there, which is moving, and it will always be moving. So the fuel is part of that math to go from 0 miles an hour to that high orbital velocity. There's fuel being used. That's how I test it. I test it with my camera. The sky is turning. You can see it by looking up at the sky. Nobody observes the Earth rotating unless they're in love with a ring laser gyro that measures light. And somehow they say that that measures the Earth turning and rotating. I disagree. Our senses are not useless, and every human being observes a stationary Earth with a turning sky above them.
Okay, where am I here? Let me see. That mother, that is totally unacceptable. 2, why I'm going to make sure my son gets taken care of. We did nothing. You know, I got a great idea. Is I'm going to put him, how old was he? And I said, Mr. President, as I've told you before, or she, President Trump, that did not exist. What a It's sick. How's that done? I have no idea. But the question is, okay, hang on a second here. 1, number 1. Number 2, I mean, this is gigantic. How we work, we're planning 3.5 years ahead. Do you? Somewhere, I asked the staff to write it down for me, and they did. Not for this, but, you know, if you're a husband and wife, a school teacher, and a cop, not paying a cent in taxes, allegedly, and we're going to need 3 things to do that. First, after this, as a matter of fact, shortly after this, I'm happy, significant numbers. What are we doing? So I just find it can't function in an ever complex world. Frustrating. You talk about, if you think about it, it's the place we have to build. The environment's already, global warming's already done significant damage. $100 million shots in less than 60 days, and now we're moving to the next 100 million shots in just 40 days. I need the American people to do their part as well. Mask up. Mask up. It's a patriotic duty. You heard me say many times before, with vaccines, there's hope. Mask up. Mask up. It's a patriotic duty. This is deadly serious. As many people as we vaccinated, we still have more Americans left to go. You know, we will administer more shots in March than any country on earth. But even so, we have to give more shots in April than we did in March. With vaccines, there's hope. It's time to do even more. Mask up. Mask up. It's a patriotic duty. Until this country's vaccinated, each of us has to do our part. We have an obligation. And get vaccinated. Mask up. Mask up. It's a patriotic duty. America at its finest. Get vaccinated, completely safe. Wear a mask as recommended by the CDC. Do our duty. Our duty. Moral obligation. What we do now is time to do what we do best as a country. Wash your hands. Stay socially distanced. Get vaccinated when it's your turn. Wash your hands. Practice social distancing. Wear a mask as recommended by the CDC. Our jobs, because you've been vaccinated, because you're safe, because you're in the clear. Get vaccinated, completely safe. And get vaccinated, completely safe. Our jobs. Until this country is vaccinated, each of us has to do our part. We have an obligation.
All throughout recorded time, the billions of people who have lived full lives and passed on, and all the people alive today have something in common. All of us have lived our lives on ground that appears in every way to be completely stationary. This is a fact. Nobody has ever observed the earth rotating beneath their feet. It always appears to be completely still, unless there's an earthquake or landslide or something like that. The world we live on appears to be stationary, and everyone who has ever been alive is witness to this simple observation. Often when debating the subject of Earth's rotation, people bring up a moving bullet train or a merry-go-round and try to explain that something moving at a constant velocity will feel stationary unless there is acceleration. This is an example of an observation that is only confusing people into assuming there's already motion happening, and we just can't tell. I will point out that Earth is not a bullet train or a merry-go-round. Earth is stationary, not moving ground that the bullet train and merry-go-round move over. To make a measuring device or apparatus to detect movement or rotation of the earth is being opposed by the entire human race's observation. Are we measuring what we think we are measuring if it goes against the observations we make? This is where we need to question whether we are measuring something in reality, or if we are assuming that we are measuring something in reality and attributing it to something we don't observe at all, and calling that an observation, even one that trumps our actual observations in reality. But I encourage everyone who sees this to realize that this subject is not being debated because people are dumb or smart. It is happening because we were born into a time when the world has become confused about the order of the stars and the nature of the earth, and have forgotten God and considered the heavens to be our domain. I can give my testimony about being shown some of these things and told to go out and talk about them. You might find that strange, but there's a place called heaven, and God is revealing new things to many people, and they are true and are quite simple to observe in the real world that He made for us. As I have mentioned before, this current debate was known about and written about by many prophets of God, and they wrote of a time when God would transform the earth and make it a blessing and cause His elect to dwell there, but those who chose to believe a lie would not set foot there. The truth is important, so be honest with yourself when considering these things. we're gonna look at Stellarium, where I have Stellarium sitting there. And we are in Colombia. We are in Colombia. We're on the equator, or close to it. So, I just want to explain what I have on the screen here, so everybody understands. We're looking north from the equator, almost the equator. See that star right above the N? That is the center star that all the stars go around. The north, the pole star, whatever you want to call it, Polaris. So if we go like this, and if we go forward in time, we're going to see the stars going counterclockwise around that North Star, right? Very simple. Counterclockwise rotation. Well, all these comments I get tell me, and Craig from Fight the Flat Earth told me, no, at the equator, they switch directions. Sorry about that. Okay, so see how Polaris is right about at the horizon? So we're about at the equator looking north. And that's what we see. We see that counterclockwise rotation. If we turn ourselves around, we're going to see very much the same thing, but the rotation is obviously going to appear to be the different direction because we're turning around.
Only this, I don't understand. You keep saying things that only work on a globe, and I don't understand how you don't see that they
I don't think that it only works on a globe. I think there's a very good explanation of how it works over a flat Earth.
There isn't one, though.
What I'm saying is anywhere you go in the northern hemisphere, above the equator, or you're going to see the stars doing circles around Polaris. Would you agree? I mean, that's what you see. That's what I see.
Yeah.
Now, if you go to Australia, you're going to see the same thing, but you're going to be looking at the south center of rotation. But it's south. Like what I'm saying is,
again,
I made a
which is
video.
something that's only possible on the globe. This is what's blowing my mind here. You
Okay,
keep
tell me
saying
why
things
it's only
that
possible on a globe.
Because the Earth
Tell me
is flat,
why.
you couldn't have counter-rotating star trails.
Well, they're not counter-rotating. They're all
They appear
rotating
to
the
be
same
based
direction.
on the. If you look up at the sky, they appear to rotate in counter-rotation in different ways. That's undeniable.
It's because you turned around.
And that would not. Yeah, but okay, that would mean that the flat Earth was inside out, though.
No.
Yeah.
No, let me explain. I think you can understand this. I think you can understand because I remember the last debate we had, or last time, or one of them, you had mentioned that at the equator that the stars switch directions, like the
Right.
direction of rotation switches, and that's not true. No matter where you are, if you're in the north, you're going to have the stars rising in the east and setting in the west, correct?
Yes.
And it's the same in the south. It's you turning around that makes them appear to be going a different direction. Well, I'm here to show you how simple it is of a misunderstanding. Okay, so we're just going to look at this again. We're going to go back to there, okay? So we're going to go forward in time. So like as time goes, the direction that time goes, and watch the stars going in a counter or anti-clockwise, right? Okay, so now we will simply turn around to the south and we will look. Now, going forward in time, just like time goes, we are seeing clockwise rotation. You see that? Are the stars going the same direction? Yes. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, let's look to the west. Okay, now as we go, let me skip back here. Okay, as we go forward in time, we're going to see the stars going down towards the horizon, setting, right? Setting in the west. No matter if you're looking north, they're still setting in the west. Or if you're looking south, they're still setting in the west. Even though they're going, from your point of view, they're going different directions. They're going opposite direction of each other, but that's because you turned around. We're gonna go around the world a little bit on Stellarium just so I can show this over and over again. Okay, going forward, clockwise, looking south, okay? Clockwise looking south. We turn around to the north. Counterclockwise, anti-clockwise, whatever you want to call it. Looking to the north. Setting in the west. We turn to the east. Rising in the east. Okay? We're at the equator in Colombia. So now, here's where we were. Right there in Colombia. Okay? So that's where we were there. Now we're going to go to where I live, which is in Minnesota at 45 degrees. And now we're going to look north again. Okay. Same thing. Anti-clockwise. Around the same star. But you notice the star's in a different position now. Remember it was right above the N before? When we were south farther? That's because how everything in the sky ever that's going away from you will appear to go down towards the horizon. As you go further away from it, it's going to get closer and closer to the horizon. Very much like a jet flying away from you. It's eventually going to run into the trees, and then you won't be able to see it anymore. This is very much the same of what Polaris is doing here. Is we're closer to Polaris now than we were in Colombia. Anti-clockwise, okay? Now we simply turn around to the south, and what do you expect for us to see? I expect us to see the same thing again. Clockwise is what I expect to see. There we go. Setting in the west, rising in the east. Okay, now let's go somewhere south. Let's go to Argentina. Let's go to Argentina. Okay, and we will use this location because that's further south. Alright, what do you expect to see? I expect to see the exact same thing. Anti-clockwise in the north, clockwise in the south. So here's the south is moving clockwise around a point right about here. There's not necessarily a bright star there, but there's a center point, right? There's an axis. There's a center of rotation, but it's clockwise. Now I simply turn around to the north and anti-clockwise, setting in the west, rising in the east. No matter where you are in the world, this is what you will experience in the sky. For who is there of all the children of men that is able to hear the voice of the Holy One without being troubled? And who can think his thoughts? And who is there that can behold all the works of heaven? And how should there be one who could behold the heaven? And who is there that could understand the things of heaven, and see a soul or a spirit, and could tell thereof? Or ascend and see all their ends, and think them, or do like them? And who is there of all men that could know what is the breadth and the length of the earth? And to whom has been shown the measure of all of them? Or is there anyone who could discern the length of the heaven, and how great is its height, and upon what it is founded? And how great is the number of the stars, and where all the luminaries rest? Observe ye everything that takes place in the heaven, how they do not change their orbits, and the luminaries which are in the heaven, how they all rise and set, in order each in its season, and transgress not against their appointed order. Behold ye the earth, and give heed to the things which take place upon it from first to last, how steadfast they are, how none of the things upon earth change, but all the works of God appear to you. Behold the summer and the winter, how the whole earth is filled with water, and clouds and dew and rain lie upon it. Observe and see how in the winter all the trees seem as though they had withered and shed all their leaves, except 14 trees which do not lose their foliage, but retain the old foliage from 2 to 3 years, till the new comes. And again, observe ye the days of summer, how the sun is above the earth over against it, and you seek shade and shelter by the reason of the heat of the sun, and the earth also burns with growing heat, and so you cannot tread on the earth, or on a rock, by reason of its heat. Observe ye how the trees cover themselves with green leaves and bear fruit. Wherefore give ye heed and know with regard to all his works, and recognize how he that liveth forever hath made them so. And all his works go on thus from year to year forever, and all the tasks which they accomplish for him, and their tasks change not, but according as God hath ordained, so it is done.
But the thing that's really important to revolutionize space is a rapidly reusable rocket. That's reliable too. So that's really what needs to happen. If that can be done, then the cost of access to orbit and beyond can be reduced by potentially a factor of 100 or more. So that's really what is most important about. It's got to be done by somebody's got to do this. And if you have rapid and complete reusability, then that opens up. That is the gateway to the heavens.
1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff. Vehicle is pitching downrange. Vehicle has reached maximum aerodynamic pressure.
We just passed through max Q.
The Crew Dragon to get us from Earth to low Earth orbit. The Crew Dragon, the Falcon 9 rocket into space. Crew Dragon, Crew Dragon, Crew Dragon, now here on the International Space Station.
Orbiting laboratory work is being done up there.
The International Space Station is outside the Earth's atmosphere in space. Tricky spacewalk. Astronaut on the International Space Station to help keep the space station running. Maybe you're working on the toilet to understand dark matter to space, thawing out, human cells to return that science to Earth's microgravity laboratory. It's like 6,000 square feet up here in the International Space Station. There's a lot of other people up here. We're going to be here for 6 months. We're in it for the long haul, which is also very exciting.
Spacewalks and using tools in space.
The Artemis program.
The Artemis program.
The Artemis program, and the work that we do right here on the International Space Station. Been an astronaut. Oh gosh, I'm just not going to be any good at that. Space station. We're looking back billions of light years. It's kind of mind-boggling.
To the space station.
I experienced some nausea.
How is sleeping in space?
Because you're just floating. It's not used to just floating. And so it does feel a little weird.
Floating up in space.
Our planet is 2/3 covered in ocean. Of course, I love to look out the window at our beautiful planet. It's lovely to look out the window and watch the world go by. Well, it's got to be floating. I can just kind of perch up on the wall. I can just hop over to the side and just find a nice little perch to sit on board the space station.
What does it smell like in space?
So that's an interesting question. So it smells like people up here. It's not really fresh air. When people went out to do a spacewalk and then came back inside, I smelled the smell of cooking meat. It smelled like hamburger to me, which was so strange. And that smell is the smell that space smells like hamburger. It smelled like hamburger to me, which was so strange. We have so much fun up here. It's just a great time up here. I smelled the smell of cooking meat, and we're getting paid for it. 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 Maybe you're working on the toilet, and so it does feel a little weird. Oh gosh, I'm just not going to be any good at that. And we're getting paid for it, 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 paid for it. I smelled the smell of cooking meat. It's kind of mind-boggling. And we're getting paid for it, paid for it.
The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is.
Do that. Well, we'll have to rely on space.
The problem is the moon. The problem is the moon.
We don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology in a nanosecond. We don't have the technology to do that anymore, and it's a painful process to build it back again. I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond, build it back again, build it back again, build it back again, build it back again. We used to build it back again, build it back again, build it back again, build it back again.
We used to
build it back again, build it back again, build it back again, build it back again. In a nanosecond. Destroyed that technology, destroyed that technology. Build it back again, build it back again, build it back again, build it back again.
Well, I kind of have two moons in my head, I guess, whereas most people just have one moon. I look at the moon just like everybody else who's never been there. There it is, and I've always thought it was interesting, whether it's full or a sliver or what have you. But every once in a while I do think of the second moon, the one that I recall from up close, and it's kind of hard to believe that I was actually up there.
I want to promise you I'm human. I pinch myself to find out whether it was really happening. I call the moon my home for 3 days of my life, and I'm here to tell you about it. That's science fiction.
My father was born shortly after the Wright brothers. He could barely believe that I went to the moon.
Hard to believe that I was actually up there.
Barely believe.
Science fiction.
Barely believe.
Science fiction.
Barely believe.
Science fiction.
Barely believe.
Science fiction.
Hard to believe that I was actually up there. Actually up there.
Science fiction.
Actually up there.
Science fiction.
Because there's no gravity. You're floating. Because there's no gravity. You're floating.
Science fiction.
Because there's no gravity.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
We didn't go there, and that's the way it happened.
We didn't.
And that's the way it happened. It didn't happen, and that's the way it happened. They'll make sure you go to school.
Continue to just produce imagery of all types. And the more we put out there, the more real it becomes to everyone. And the more we put out there, the more real it becomes to everyone.
And sometimes that is really difficult to believe that it could actually be true. It's difficult to believe that this is happening. It's difficult to believe sometimes that it's actually happening. And sometimes that is really difficult to believe that it could actually be true.
I'm Don Pettit, NASA astronaut. Space station is a serious place. We have a regenerative life support system, which is a fancy way of saying serious research, scientific research, that we've got a toilet that you use, and then a machine that goes chugga, 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 chug, and then you go to the galley and you make yourself a cup of coffee. Serious research, scientific research, and that's exactly what you are thinking it is.
But water is such a precious resource up here that we also are cleaning up our urine and making it drinkable. And it's really not as bad as it sounds.
Better you than me.
We even recycle our urine.
Pig.
But before you cringe at the thought of drinking your leftover wash water and your leftover urine,
Chugga 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 chug.
Kind of engineering research that we're doing on space station. I want to do some physics demonstrations. Chugga 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 chug. Some eggs. And don't ask me how I got to eggs on space station. I've got a bungee spread across the hatchway. Serious research, scientific research. And this bungee is kind of like a slingshot. And I'm going to show the trajectory that Redbird is going to have when I fire him with this orbital slingshot. Launching Redbird into space. Well, hey, we're already into space. Chugga 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 chug. Whoa, look at that. Whoa, all the way down. Guess what? Chugga 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 chug. Chugga 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 chug. Chugga 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 chug. And if you understand the math, if you understand the physics, it will allow you to go out and get where you're an astronaut and you can fly in space in games. This is all that's left of Pig after Pig got exploded. Chugga 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 chug. Chugga 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 chug. I would go back to space in a nanosecond. That's what I do for a living. I'd be willing to immigrate from Earth, immigrate into space, leaving Earth and never come back, so long as, one, we had the technology so that you could survive. You know, one-way missions to Mars where you go there and then run out of air and die. That's not in the cards. I'd load my family up on the next rocket and we'd immigrate into space.
Okay, so where does the pee go if you do it in the spacecraft?
In the spacecraft, it's collected and then dumped, as he described. And you would want to see the urine dump was cool.
And it's just something that it's a continual occurrence. It's like a very small rain, a drizzle, and it's just something that you have to engineer around when you make a spacecraft. Well, I would go back to space in a nanosecond.
Get thee hence, Satan. For it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve.
I think it's going to sound pretty crazy.
Spacefaring entities. Just the launch is difficult enough.
Can't really give you much of a clue as to where this data ended up.
A city on Mars?
Jupiter. Saturn. Uranus. What? No, Uranus.
Everyone just thinks rockets just go up.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond.
Just the launch is difficult enough.
We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
So with that, that will conclude our briefing. Thank you very much.
You can tell it's real because it looks so fake, honestly. And it's still tripping me out. I mean, I'm tripping balls here. Tripping balls here.
I look in Isaiah 14 where it talks about Lucifer. It actually says in Isaiah 14 what Lucifer's big plans are. Lucifer's big plans are. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will ascend into heaven.
I will ascend into heaven.
I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, above the stars of God.
Above the stars of God.
Has left a mark in the heavens.
I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds.
I will ascend above the heights of the clouds.
I will be like the Most High, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Now here, I mean, this pretty much covers it. This basically gives us what Satan's plan is.
And then SpaceX is about helping make life multiplanetary and doing what we can to continue the dream of Apollo.
If I spin this can, we know that according to the equations of motion, that we would expect that once this is given a spin. Hi, Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out. And we'll zoom our camera in slowly, get the most magnification we can. Over. Roger. It's Big Mike Collins. And it is sort of down in a dark corner, so we have a flashlight here to help us see things. And if I can let go of it carefully, it'll just hold itself right where it is. Roger, as long as you disturb it, will. Apollo 11, Houston, that's a pretty good demonstration. You started out really stable there, Mike. It's, well, the problem is no matter how carefully you let go, you bump it just a tiny little bit, set it in motion, and once in motion, there she goes.
I bet you've seen pictures of the astronauts up in the space station, and they're floating around as if there's no gravity at all. And this is actually a really interesting misconception about what's going on with the astronauts. So it's not that they're weightless because they're in space and far away from the Earth. They're actually close enough to the Earth to feel the gravitational pull of the Earth itself. So what's going on? Why are they floating around? Well, this is what an orbit really is. We have to get spacecraft going very, very fast to put them into orbit. That's why we put them on rockets. Rockets launch spacecraft and get them going very, very fast. And if you're in orbit where the space station is, you're traveling at about 17,000 miles an hour. Now, what happens to those astronauts is that they're going very, very fast, but they're actually freely falling towards the Earth. The Earth has gravity, and that gravity is pulling them down, just the same as what would happen as if you dropped a ball. If you dropped a ball, it would fall to the floor. The same thing is happening to the astronauts. They are falling towards the surface of the Earth. They keep missing the Earth as they fall. And that's the definition of an orbit. That's what an orbit is. And that's why you need a rocket to get into orbit. You need to get yourself going so fast that as you fall back towards Earth, you keep missing it. So the astronauts are not weightless because there's no gravity in space. The astronauts are falling the same way a skydiver is falling freely through space. It's just that they're going so fast, they keep missing the Earth. They are all the time falling towards the Earth, going fast enough that they keep missing it. Everything that's in orbit around anything else is doing the same thing.
See things, and if I can let go of it carefully, it'll just hold itself right where it is.
This is hopefully the first step on a journey towards a civilization on Mars, life becoming multiplanetary.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and think to change times and laws.
Life can become multiplanetary. This is the goal we should strive for.
And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, and his tabernacle, 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 and them that dwell in heaven, tabernacle in heaven.
I believe that it's important for the future to be a spacefaring civilization, and out there, ultimately be out there among the stars, be out there among the stars.
Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord.
Be out there among the stars.
Among the stars.
Be out there among the stars.
And though thou set thy nest among the stars.
If the future does not include being out there among the stars, based on the moon, and expanding beyond Earth, and
among the stars.
Be out there among the stars. Life becoming multiplanetary. Propulsive landing.
Getting the basic infrastructure of being able to reuse these rockets.
Propulsive landing.
Getting the basic infrastructure of being able to reuse these rockets.
Fast, you're going to do a final burn here in just a moment. There's final burn 1 and 2. 2 candles coming down. Double sonic booms. Beautiful landing. And I see 2 standing.
Woo!
There they go.
Fuck yes! Holy shit!
believe that it's important for the future to be a spacefaring civilization and out there, ultimately be out there among the stars. And I think that's the exciting, inspiring future that I think certainly people in this room want.
Astronauts Kate Rubins and Jeff Williams now in the Cooper Workstation of the International Space Station, operating the station's robotic arm, moving through their procedures for drag and capture as they are preparing for moving the arm into its capture position to grapple the SpaceX cargo vehicle, now sitting at 11.2 meters away from the International Space Station.
Ready for the event.
Our question is, what is the exact purpose of having humans live on the space station? Thanks.
We're going to put in a new experiment next week that's coming up on Dragon.
We're leaving Earth.
Dragon.
The space station is a robust, tough spaceship. And we are, for the first time in history, with this space station, as a planet, as a species, we're leaving Earth. The weird part about it is space is so incredibly black, so incredibly dark. We're leaving Earth.
Dragon.
It's a bottomless pit. The space station is, we're leaving Earth.
Dragon.
Of deep black. Almost so deep it almost has a texture when you look at it. And
the smell in there is a little bit like that trace of a smell of gunpowder or burnt steak, or sort of like brimstone, like a witch has just been there.
Dragon.
And in the sun, in the shiny part, it's 150 degrees.
The part of you that's in the sun, it's plus 250 degrees.
And in the shade, it's minus 120 degrees.
In the shade in space, it's like minus 250 degrees.
But it's a bottomless pit.
The smell in there is a little bit like brimstone, like a witch has just been there.
We're leaving Earth. The space station is
Dragon.
It's a bottomless pit.
Dragon.
The space station is we're leaving Earth.
Cool, yeah.
And to really believe in the space frontier, the abyss, so to speak.
The good abyss, yeah.
But
It's a bottomless pit.
Globe heads.
Things that are to come. There is a God in the sky that reveals secrets. Deep secrets, revealed only at a certain time and only to one generation of people. These people would be alive to witness the destruction of the world that would happen during their lives. That same God in the sky sent angels to men on earth many different times and places with a matching message. He said that he would put it into the hearts of wicked men to believe a lie and bring on their own destruction. And fire would come out of the sky and burn them up, and the stars would fall, and darkness would consume it. But because of his love for all the people, even the wicked ones, he would send a message to that generation, a message of truth. And some of them would bear witness to this truth and share this message of truth to the world. Many would believe this truth, and it would change them, and they would be healed of many infirmities. These people who would be called to deliver this message would be following the only begotten Son, the Word of God. And he would be their only way, and he would lead them on their way, and they would serve him and know him and love him, and he would save them on the last day. But not only them, but many others who would hear his voice and follow him wherever he goes. Time is short. He is knocking at your door if you've listened to this. All you have to do is answer it. Thank you for listening.
Liftoff of the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, launching Dragon to the International Space Station, launching Dragon.
there is a bit of an education process that's needed to understand orbital dynamics, because a lot of people are confused of like, why the heck are you landing a rocket on a ship in the ocean? That seems pretty inconvenient. And the reason is because that going up and staying up is actually about velocity horizontal to the Earth's surface. So there's a huge difference between space and orbit. Like space, you could think of as like, say, being the international waters boundary for the Pacific Ocean. Like if you go, 100 miles offshore, you're technically out of coastal waters. Now you're in the Pacific.
Right.
So it's like technically you're in the Pacific, but orbit is like circumnavigating the globe. It's a really giant difference. And the reason that things go up and stay up is because you're zooming around the Earth so fast that your outward radial acceleration is equal to the inward acceleration of gravity. We're thinking like a coin funnel. Like it's very much like that but it's obviously a sort of a four-dimensional coin funnel. But if you spin a marble or a coin on a coin funnel, when it's far out, it sort of spins slowly, and then as it gets closer, it spins faster and faster. And if you were to start at the bottom of the coin funnel and you wanted to exit, you'd spin it horizontally, and it would spin out, and that's really how you get to orbit. If you spin a marble, we're thinking like a coin funnel.
This is all wrong. The world is waking up, and change is coming whether you like it or not. Thank you.
And he said to me, because of their iniquity, their judgment has been completed, and they will no longer be counted before me. Because of their sorceries, they have searched out and learnt, the earth and those who dwell upon it will be destroyed. And they came upon the wind from the east and from the west to the south. And the sound of the noise of their chariots was heard. And when this occurred, the holy ones observed it from heaven, and the pillars of the earth were shaken from their foundations, and the sound was heard from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven throughout the day. And all will fall down and worship the Lord of spirits. And this is the end of the second parable.
Pilate therefore said unto him, Art thou a king then? Jesus answered, Thou sayest that I am a king. To this end was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Every one that is of the truth heareth my voice. To this end was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Every one that is of the truth heareth my voice. That I should bear witness unto the truth. Truth.
Hello, my name is Lechko and I am 10. My question is, they say the universe is infinite and expanding. Can you say how something infinite can expand?
That's a very tough question. In fact, one of the things I love about science is that we deal with questions like that and try to find ways to measure things and make theories and then test them. I do not know the answer to that question, and I hope that someone from your generation in the future will learn enough about it because of science to be able to explain the answer to me someday.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Back in Jill Stevens.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
You know, we've been studying as deep as we can into some of the astronomical events that have taken place in the world. And when we start talking about this destroyer, obviously millions of things, something major comes to mind, but a lot of different clues on what a lot of mythologies talk about. I mean, almost all of them have this star or thing or whatever you want to call it that comes forth and creates a catastrophic event that really actually changes, and you'll get into that, but changes time itself.
Yeah, it changes time itself. It changes the calendar.
This star.
This is the only place that humans have outside of planet Earth where humans can live. And if you like, down there on Earth, you can actually see it with your naked eye. You just go to the ISS website and it tells you when to see us. You can look up in the sky and you will see this bright little star moving over the sky.
This star.
Now, when this war begins, also the war in the heavenlies will take place. And we're going to look at a text here in 2nd Esdras, and we're going to look behind the scenes into the spiritual realm for just a moment. In 2nd Esdras 15:35, and they shall smite one upon another, and they shall smite down a great multitude of stars upon the earth. And even their own star. And blood shall be from the sword unto the belly, and even their own star. And even their own star.
This bright little star moving over the sky.
And even their own star. Now, this talks about casualties in the angelic realm of stars being beat down to the earth by other stars. This is literally an angel war that we're seeing, and the war in heaven. This is going to be wild, and I don't know how much of this we're going to see. During this time, the word in Isaiah says, you know, you better get in and hide, because there's going to be all kinds of strange going on. This is when Jesus said men's hearts are going to fail them for fear. Their hearts are just going to give out because it's just too much for them. Now, there is a precise correlation to this in the scripture about the smiting down of the stars. Now, let's read it in Daniel chapter 8 and verse 10. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. that there's going to be casualties in this spiritual war. We're actually going to have angels fighting and destroying one another, casting them to the ground and stamping them. And in this text, it says that the little horn will do this.
Behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him. There was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven. And it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. So that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men.
And even their own star.
This bright little star moving over the sky. This is the only place that humans have outside of planet Earth where humans can live. And if you like, down there on Earth, you can actually see it with your naked eye. You just go to the ISS website and it tells you when to see us. You can look up in the sky and you will see this bright little star.
This star
moving over the sky. Here we are, 6 humans on the International Space Station, the embassy of humankind out in space.
And even their own star.
You can look up in the sky and
And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. When they behold the beast.
You can look up in the sky and
they behold the beast.
You will see this bright little star.
They behold the beast.
Moving over the sky.
They behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is.
You can see that on many, many nights, and if you see it, think about that humans actually built this.
And even their own star.
On the International Space Station, outside of planet Earth.
So incredibly black, so incredibly dark. It's a bottomless pit of deep black.
Wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. Because in the Bible, there's a place where there's darkness forever. And it's called hell.
It's a bottomless pit.
Be a certain speed to escape the gravity of the Earth.
Yeah, you can think of gravity as kind of a funnel in space-time. Think of it like a coin funnel. Like it's very much like that in but it's obviously a sort of a four-dimensional coin funnel. But if you spin a marble or a coin on a coin funnel, when it's far out, it sort of spins slowly, and then as it gets closer, it spins faster and faster. And if you were to start at the bottom of the coin funnel and you wanted to exit, you'd spin it horizontally, and it would spin out, and that's really how you get to orbit. I call upon the public to support this goal, and to think about this goal, and think about how important it is, and how fundamental it is to the future. We've got to get it done.
Probably have a hard time hearing from me right now. Should I have a mask on and that be muffled?
Mr. President,
You're going to have to take that off, please. You're very muffled, so if you would take it off, it would be a lot easier.
Okay.
I can't hear you!
Hello,
Yes.
I can't hear you! I said I can't hear you!
I can't hear you.
I can hear you! I can't hear you. You're very muffled. I can't hear you! I can't hear you! I can't hear you! I can't hear you!
And when they were gone, I ordered Orneus be brought forward and said to him, "Tell me how you know this." And he answered, "We demons ascend into the firmament of heaven and fly about among the stars. And we hear the sentences which go forth upon the souls of men. And forthwith we come, and whether by force or of influence, or by fire, or by sword, or by some accident, we veil our act of destruction. And if a man does not die by some untimely disaster or by violence, then we demons transform ourselves in such a way as to appear to men and be worshipped in our human nature. I therefore, having heard this, glorified the Lord God, and again I questioned the demons, saying, "Tell me how ye can ascend into heaven, being demons, and amidst the stars and holy angels intermingle?" And he answered, "Just as things are fulfilled in heaven, so also on earth are fulfilled the types of all of them. For there are principalities, authorities, world rulers, and we demons fly about in the air, and we hear the voices of the heavenly beings, and survey all the powers, and as having no ground basis on which to alight the rest, we lose strength and fall off like leaves from trees. And men, seeing us, imagine that the stars are falling from heaven. But it is not really so, O king, but we fall because of our weakness, and because we have nowhere anything to lay hold of, and so we fall down like lightnings in the depth of the night and suddenly, and we set cities in flames and fires in the fields. For the stars have firm foundations in the heavens, like the sun and the moon. And I, Solomon, having heard this, ordered the demon to be guarded for 5 days, and after the 5 days I recalled the old man, and was about to question him, but he came to me in grief, and with a black face. And I said to him, "Tell me, old man, where's thy son? And what means this garb?" And he answered, "Lo, I am become childless, and sit by my son's grave in despair, for it is already 2 days that he is dead." But I, Solomon, on hearing that, and knowing that the demon Orneus had told me the truth, glorified the God of Israel. And the queen of the south saw all this, and marveled, glorifying the God of Israel. And she beheld the temple of the Lord being builded. And she gave a siklos of gold, and 100 myriads of silver, and a choice bronze. And she went into the temple, and she beheld the altar of incense, and the brazen supports of this altar, and the gems of the lamps flashing forth different colors, and of the lampstand of stone, and of emerald, and hyacinth, and sapphire. And she beheld the vessels of gold, and silver, and bronze, and wood, and the folds of skin dyed red with madder. And she saw the bases of the pillars of the temple of the Lord. All were of one gold apart from the demons who I condemned to labor. And there was peace in the circle of my kingdom.
Earth is a giant ball of lava with a thin crust on the top. Thin crust. And it's mostly just a big ball of lava. That's Earth.
Giant ball of lava. Giant ball of lava. Giant ball of lava. Giant ball of lava. With a thin crust.
That's Earth.
That is real science.
And to talk about symbolism, we got the...
This is hopefully the first step on a journey towards a civilization on Mars, life becoming multiplanetary.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." And think to change times and laws.
Life can become multiplanetary. This is the goal we should strive for.
And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, 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 and them that dwell in heaven, tabernacle in heaven.
I believe that it's important for the future to be a spacefaring civilization, and out there, ultimately be out there among the stars, be out there among the stars.
Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord.
Be out there among the stars,
among the stars,
be out there among the stars.
And though thou set thy nest among the stars.
If the future does not include being out there among the stars, based on the moon, and expanding beyond Earth, and
among the stars,
be out there among the stars, life becoming multiplanetary.
And liftoff.
And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth.
Liftoff of the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket.
And he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon.
Launching Dragon.
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 The dragon.
Dragon.
The dragon.
Dragon.
The dragon.
To the International Space Station.
And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority.
Dragon blasted to space.
The dragon.
Dragon is expected to stay attached to the space station until October 28th.
And they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast.
Dragon is currently the only craft capable of returning a significant amount of supplies from the station.
He was cast out into the earth.
The goal of SpaceX really was to make as much progress as possible to advance rocket technology to the point where hopefully we can establish a colony on Mars.
Good morning, welcome aboard. Dragon, SpaceX, ComCheck, ground stations.
SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
On behalf of the entire launch team, thanks for flying with Falcon 9 today. We hope you enjoyed the ride and wish you a great mission.
We would like to welcome you aboard Capsule Endeavour.
MD Houston flight. Houston is go for undocking and departure.
Dragon is committed to undock.
SpaceX Dragon on Dragon to ground. We are ready for the systems brief.
Copy. As stated, Dragon's in a healthy state. We are proceeding toward the primary landing site, and your timeline is current. Visual, 2 drogues out.
200 meters. We are braced for splashdown.
Copy, brace for splashdown. Endeavour, on behalf of the SpaceX and NASA teams, welcome back to planet Earth, and thanks for flying SpaceX.
It's a humbling experience to be a part of what was accomplished. It's great to see how excited everybody was. We hope it brings a little bit of brightness to a pretty tough 2020.
Advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand.
Being able to fly, being able to see over long distances, being able to communicate, and having access to all the world's information instantly from almost anywhere on the Earth. This is stuff that really would be magic, or would be considered magic in times past. Being a multi-planet species and being out there among the stars is important for the long-term survival of humanity. You know, if you consider two futures, one where we are forever confined to Earth until eventually something terrible happens, or another future where we are out there on many planets, maybe even going beyond the solar system,
among the stars.
I think that second version is incredibly exciting and inspiring, and there need to be reasons to get up in the morning. You know, life can't just be about solving problems. Otherwise, what's the point? There's got to be things that people find inspiring. The future of humanity will fundamentally bifurcate along the lines of either single planet species or multi-planet species. And a multi-planet version of humanity, or of humanity's future, is going to last a lot longer. We will propagate civilization into the future far longer if we are a multi-planet species than if we are a single planet species. And so it's like planetary redundancy, backing up the biosphere. We've got all of our eggs in one basket here. We should try to protect that basket and do everything we can, but there are some risks that are just extremely difficult to mitigate, and some which we will ultimately not be able to mitigate. So it just seems like the right thing to do. And then the next question is, well, should we do it now, or should we wait for some point in the future? And I think it's the wise move is to do it now, because the window of technology for this is open, and it's the first time that window has been open in the 4.5 billion year history of Earth. I think there are really two fundamental paths. History is going to bifurcate along two directions. One path is we stay on Earth forever, and then there will be some eventual extinction event. I don't have an immediate doomsday prophecy, but eventually history suggests there will be some doomsday event. The alternative is to become a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species, which I hope you would agree that is the right way to go.
Because, why do we need to build a city on Mars with 1 million people on it in your lifetime?
Yeah, I think it's important to have a future that is inspiring and appealing. I mean, I just think that there have to be reasons that you get up in the morning and you want to live. Like, why do you want to live? What's the point? What inspires you? What do you love about the future? And if we're not out there, if the future does not include being out there among the stars and being a multi-planet species, I find that it's incredibly depressing if that's not the future that we're going to have.
You decided to build a space company. Why on earth would someone do that?
When we could resume the dream of Apollo. The goal of SpaceX is to try to advance rocket technology, and in particular to try to crack a problem that I think is vital for humanity to become a spacefaring civilization, which is to have a rapidly and fully reusable rocket. What are the things that need to happen in order for the future to be an exciting and inspiring one? And I really think there's a fundamental difference if you sort of look into the future between a humanity that is a spacefaring civilization that's out there exploring the stars on multiple planets. And I think that's really exciting, and compared with one where we are forever confined to Earth until at some eventual extinction event.
Sometimes the truth is hard to find. You gotta chase after it a little bit. But truth is truth, and it's there. And we've been taught to believe lies. And so I'm trying to point them out. Be careful what you believe in the time we live in. I would like to challenge your beliefs and challenge you to consider other possibilities that nobody considered until a few years ago.
Quench not the spirit. Despise not prophesying. Prove all things. Hold fast that which is good. Prove all things. Prove all things. things. Fear before him all the earth. The world also shall be stable, that it be not moved. That it be not moved. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Prove all things. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image, into an image, into an image, into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds, and four-footed beasts, and creeping things. We speak that we do know, and testify that we have seen, and ye receive not our witness. If I have told you earthly things, and ye believe not, how shall ye believe if I tell you of heavenly things? And no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man which is in heaven. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, Amen. Because thou sayest, I am rich, and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched, and miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear. And anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Be zealous therefore and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to him, and will sup with him, and he with me. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to him, and will sup with him, and he with me.
The weird part about it is space is so incredibly black, so incredibly dark. It's a bottomless pit of deep black. Almost so deep it almost has a texture when you look at it.
It's wandering stars to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever.
And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. Here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is. And the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition.
And I saw a deep abyss, with columns of heavenly fire, and among them I saw columns of fire fall, which were beyond measure, alike towards the height and towards the depth. And beyond that abyss I saw a place which had no firmament of the heaven above, and no firmly founded earth beneath it. There was no water upon it, and no birds, but it was a waste and horrible place. I saw there 7 stars, like great burning mountains, and to me, when I inquired regarding them, the angel said,
This place is the end of heaven and earth. This has become a prison for the stars of the host of heaven.
And the stars which roll over the fire are they which have transgressed the commandment of the Lord in the beginning of their rising, because they did not come forth at their appointed times. And he was wroth with them, and bound them till the time when their guilt should be consummated, even for 10,000 years.
Why do the heathen rage, and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder, and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, 2 men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus which is taken up from you into heaven shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them throughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth.
And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak and say unto thee, Art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vials. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit.
And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon.
We could resume the dream of Apollo. The goal of SpaceX really was to make as much progress as possible to advance rocket technology to the point where hopefully we can establish a colony on Mars. Dream of Apollo.
And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon.
Apollo.
Apollyon.
Apollo.
Apollyon.
And we could resume the dream of Apollo.
The angel of the bottomless pit.
Apollo.
entering Earth's atmosphere at 25,000 miles per hour, the friction of air slows Orion considerably, while also subjecting it to temperatures of 5,000 degrees. With the Orion now at just 300 miles per
I think you asked how did I get up to the ISS and how long do I spend, and I came up here just like all the crew members since the space shuttle retired in 2011.
The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked,
Since the space shuttle retired in 2011,
and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it.
we all fly on the Russian Soyuz rocket and Soyuz spacecraft.
And behold another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one
We
side,
all fly on the Russian Soyuz rocket and Soyuz spacecraft.
like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh.
Since the end of the shuttle program, the only ride of the station has been on the Russian Soyuz. But by working with SpaceX and Boeing, there's soon going to be a new fleet of spacecraft capable of bringing humans to low Earth orbit. And of course, all of this supports the mission of the International Space Station, humanity's premier laboratory in space, where we're pushing the boundaries in science and technology every single day.
After this I beheld, and lo another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes, like the eyes of man, and a mouth, speaking great things.
The bug for space really bit me when I came down to visit my grandpa down here in Houston. So I saw the big old Saturn V rocket sitting on its belly out there and just thought, man, if humanity can do something this amazing, this awesome, I want to be a part of it. And I just fell more in love with the idea of space and being a part of something bigger than myself. The thought of actually getting to space, I couldn't wrap my head around that. You walk up to this rocket that's covered in frost from the cold fuel inside, and it's creaking and groaning and kind of alive, and you're like, well, that's pretty cool, but they're probably going to cancel. It's just not going to happen. You know, I've done so many sims, and it just can't be real. There's no way I'm going to go to space. But then when no kidding, it lights off and you feel the rumble, and then you start to move, and that kind of just constant smooth acceleration, pulling you back in the seat. Everything comes to life on the panels. You see all of the things that you've seen 100 times in Sims. In one instant, all of that I felt was unimaginable became real. And it was a magical thing I'll just never forget. You know, we're scientists and engineers and pilots and doctors. We're not poets, but we sure try to be, because you want to share as best you can the experience that you've seen and felt. I think I told my wife once I got on board that I thought it was
It's a burrito of awesomeness smothered in awesome sauce, baby. It's so beautiful.
It was just the beauty of being there yourself with your own eyes and seeing it. One thing that I would love to do while on orbit was, there was a window in one of the Russian modules that looked kind of out the back of the station. And I'd go sit there. I'd turn off everything, and you could get it really dark in there, let my eyes adjust, and just look out at the stars. And the stars, you know, the longer you sit, the more you see, and it becomes unbelievable. The number, the just billions of stars, the Magellanic Clouds, the galaxies that you can see with your naked eye. And they don't twinkle. They just stare at you. They dare you to come and to explore. It lights a fire inside your soul that is unlike anything I ever experienced before or since. And it's why you see astronauts, you know, they say 560, 580, I don't know how many people have gone to space. They're all the same. They all have that bug. And they all want to do everything in their power after experiencing that to make sure that humanity reaches its potential, that we get there, that we don't just see the stars, that we explore them, that we live there, that we grow into what we can be. And you're reminded of the incredible potential that we have as humans when we put everything else aside and just work together. And you feel a part of that, looking out the cupola and just being a part of thousands of people from across this globe that have put together this just palace in the sky for us to discover and learn and grow. It showed me the potential of what humanity can be when you work together as one team. It inspired me to do everything I can in my power for the rest of my life to enable humanity to evolve, to get there, to those stars that were staring straight in my face and daring us to come get them. That is something that you can never quench. It's been a couple years since I flew, and that fire still burns just as strong today as it will when I die.
Subscribe for more space.
In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt.
So deep it almost has a texture when you look at it. The weird part about it is space is so incredibly black, so incredibly dark. It's a bottomless pit of deep black, almost...
Even darkness which may be felt.
So deep it almost has a texture when you look at it.
And darkness was upon the face of the deep.
Wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. Wandering stars.
Raging waves of the sea, foaming out their own shame. Wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever.
For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the 8th person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making them an ensample unto those that after should live ungodly, And these are wells without water, clouds that are carried with a tempest, to whom the mist of darkness is reserved forever.
When you come in from a spacewalk, you're surrounded by the emptiness of space. It's sort of like the opposite of air. There's nothing there at all. When you quickly repressurize the hatch and you open up the hatch and you smell, what is that lingering smell from a place that used to be exposed to space? The smell in there is a little bit like that trace of a smell of gunpowder or burnt steak, or sort of like brimstone, like a witch has just been there. It's a cool, lingering trace of a smell. I think what it really is, brimstone, like sort of that metallic gunpowder-fired smell, that a witch has just been there. In truth, it smells a little bit like a witch has just been there. It smells a little bit like a burnt steak. Brimstone. It smells a little bit like a burnt steak. Brimstone, like a witch has just been there. It's a witch has just been there. It's a witch has just been there. It's a witch has just been there.
Brimstone.
That's true.
Go forth and descend through all the heavens, and thou wilt descend to the firmament, in that world to the angel in Sheol thou wilt descend. Heavens, and thou wilt descend to the firmament, in that world to the angel in Sheol thou wilt descend. Heavens, and thou wilt descend to the firmament, in that world to the angel in Sheol thou wilt descend. And we ascended to the firmament, I and he, and there I saw Samael and his hosts, and there was great fighting therein, and the angels of Satan were envying one another. And we ascended to the firmament, I and he, and there I saw Samael and his hosts, and there was great fighting therein, and the angels of Satan were envying one another.
For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment, not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment.
And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains unto darkness, unto the judgment of the great day. He hath reserved in everlasting chains. And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains unto darkness, unto the judgment of the great day.
But cast them down to hell.
Raging waves of the sea, foaming out their own shame. Wandering stars, wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. And the blackness of darkness forever. Wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever.
And the entire law of the stars will be closed to the sinners, and the thoughts of those who dwell upon the earth will go astray over them, and they will turn from all their ways and will go astray, and will think them gods.
Wandering stars.
And I saw a burning fire in what was in all the mountains, and I saw a place there beyond the great earth. There the waters gathered together. And I saw a deep chasm of the earth with pillars of heavenly fire, and I saw among them fiery pillars of heaven, which were falling, and as regards both height and depth they were immeasurable.
But cast them down to hell.
And beyond this chasm I saw a place, and it had neither the sky above it, nor the foundation of earth below it. There was no water on it, and no birds, but it was a desert place. And a terrible thing I saw there, 7 stars like great burning mountains.
Wandering stars.
And like a spirit questioning me, the angel said, This is the place of the end of heaven and earth. This is the prison for the stars of heaven and the host of heaven. And the stars which roll over the fire, these are the ones which transgress the command of the Lord.
Wandering stars.
From the beginning of their rising, because they did not come out at their proper times. And he was angry with them, and bound them until the time of the consummation of their sin, in the year of mystery. And Uriel said to me, The spirits of the angels who were promiscuous with women will stand here.
Blackness of darkness.
And they, assuming many forms,
wandering stars,
made men unclean, and will lead men astray, so that they sacrifice to demons as gods.
Wandering stars.
And they will stand there until the great judgment, on which they will be judged, so that an end will be made of them.
whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. The blackness of darkness forever. Well, I believe he's clearly talking about hell. Because in the Bible, there's a place where there's darkness forever. And it's called hell and the lake of fire.
And realize that we're on this very special place, and this precious island in this abyss of darkness, 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 in this abyss of darkness.
I was thinking about time, and it's 2020, 2020. What makes it be 2020? That means there's been 2020 years since we started counting? How do we know what a year is? Well, that's 365 days, right? Well, how do we know to count that many days? How do we know how a year is a year? We could maybe say, well, because we have all the seasons. Yeah, and why do we have all the seasons? What determines what amount of time goes by in a day? What determines what amount of time goes by in a year? Well, here's what I think. There's only one way that we can determine when a year goes by. Basically one way. And that is by looking up at the sky clock that exists. Every year, the stars, like for instance today, if we took a still shot of the sky from my house, in 1 year's time, the stars would all be in the exact same position that they're in today. But every day in between, those stars would all be in different positions than they are specifically today, and a year from today, and a year from that day, and a year from that day. Because the stars have a cycle that they go through. They're turning, but at the same time that they're turning, they're changing their orientation slightly each day. We end up with the stars back in the same position again. This is one reason why the idea that the heliocentric model gives us of the North Star being previously a different star and not Polaris is a ridiculous falsehood, because that's not how the sky works. But just think about that. How do we determine a year? We do it with the stars in the sky. And that is actually stated in the creation story in Genesis. God said he created the sun, moon, and stars for signs, seasons, and days and years. And that's what we witness here on the earth. So that is the truth. So what we've been watching here on the screen is time-lapse photography of the stars. Now what happens when the star trails, or this time-lapse photography, what happens when it starts looking like this? And if that continues, how are we going to determine what a year is? I mean, I think we could still tell. But doesn't it seem like something's kind of getting in the way there? This started to happen to time-lapse photography in May of 2019. So just over a year ago, year and a half ago or so. And every month or so, they've been launching another 60 of these satellites. These are Starlink satellites that SpaceX is putting up in there, in that darkness. People call it space. But they're putting it up there, and I'm just making a clear note to everyone that God ordained laws for all the luminaries. Every star in the sky has an ordained course that God commanded them to go on. And we already know that 7 of those stars, which we call planets, disobeyed God's ordained courses for them. And so he bound them in darkness until judgment. But besides those 7, all the other stars circle Polaris every 24 hours. And that's just what the sky has always been. And so there's been a change made in the last year and a half. A big change. So this video is just a watchman's call out to those who are paying attention. Daniel 7 verse 25 says, "And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time." I think we're there, guys. There is a man in the world today trying to change times and laws, because that is what the sun, moon, and stars are, is they are for signs, seasons, days, and years.
I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb.
Liftoff of the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, launching Dragon to the International Space Station.
And he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men.
And Stage 1 entry burn is underway. It's a burn of about 10 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
So that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men.
Falcon 9 first stage headed back toward Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, where it launched 6 minutes, 37 seconds ago.
Stage 2 performance nominal.
And he doeth great wonders, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. And the Lord God of the holy prophets sent his angel to show unto his servants the things which must shortly be done.
Those precious young people.
Back at Landing Zone 1 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station.
LZ-1, the F9 has landed. Landing operators proceed.
Thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. And after these things, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Hell from beneath is moved for thee, to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. And I, John, saw these things and heard them. And when I had heard and seen, I fell down to worship before the feet of the angel which showed me these things. Then saith he unto me, See thou do it not, for I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren the prophets, and of them which keep the sayings of this book. When he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, 2 men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus which is taken up from you into heaven shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven.
Okay, I'm a flat earther.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up, rise up, rise up. Who is able to make war with him?
The earth is spinning, and it gives us the seasons.
Fear before him all the earth. The world also shall be stable, that it be not moved, that it be not moved.
The earth is spinning, and it gives us the seasons.
Who laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever, that it should not be removed forever.
Getting deep into the actual, movement of the earth.
The Lord reigneth. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength, wherewith he hath girded himself. The world also is established, that it cannot be moved. The world also is established, that it cannot be moved.
Movement of the earth as it related to the stars and to the sun. There's an odd thing that takes place on this earth. You know that one spin of the earth is 24 hours, okay? That's one day.
In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it. And there is nothing hid from the heat thereof.
If it's spun on a perfect vertical axis, then nothing would change as far as the relationship of the stars to the earth, but it doesn't. It wobbles.
For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he hath set the world upon them.
And it takes it 25,000 and something years to make one wobble. It takes it one day to make one turn. The earth is spinning, and it gives us the seasons. Now this wobble is what we call the precession of the equinoxes. No man's lived long enough to observe this. No man's lived long enough to observe this. The stars change position in the heavens ever so slowly.
Say among the heathen that the Lord reigneth. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the people righteously. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved.
And what we have here is that the earth is turning back against the stars, but it's spinning in the other direction for the day. So it's spinning in two different directions. All right, and it's not spinning in two different directions. It's spinning in one direction, but as it spins, it wobbles.
The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved.
The North Star has changed over time, and it has changed down through time because of the wobbling of the earth.
That it should not be removed forever.
When you take a position where you absolutely and dogmatically state, well, if you don't believe this, you're not a believer. Yes, I am a believer.
If I have told you earthly things, and ye believe not, how shall ye believe if I tell you of heavenly things?
The earth is spinning.
The world also is established that it cannot be moved.
And it offends me to my soul for somebody to tell me, because I don't believe in a flat earth, that I'm not a believer.
But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to the councils, and they will scourge you in their synagogues.
You're welcome. You're welcome to come. I want to say that one more time. You are welcome to come to Temple Baptist Church if you believe in a flat earth. Just don't try to evangelize people.
But take heed to yourselves, for they shall deliver you up to councils, and in the synagogues ye shall be beaten, and ye shall be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them.
But I'll tell you right now, folks, if you believe in a flat earth, these people out here are laughing their head off at you.
If the world hate you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you.
They are laughing their head off at you.
And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them, and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwelt on the earth.
It shouldn't have to happen. A Johnny-come-lately trumped up something that came out of the cracks, and all of a sudden it's the rage.
If ye were of the world would love his own. But because ye are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you.
And everybody's jumping on board of the flat earth thing.
And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake.
The one thing that absolutely convinces me is this Christian astronaut who spent over a year up there, and all the photographs and all the videos that he made. Is this man a liar? And he's not the only one.
And no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man which is in heaven.
With a sphere, a globe, whatever you want to believe, that's up to you.
And the gospel must first be published among all nations. Verily, verily, I say unto thee, we speak that we do know, and testify that we have seen, and ye receive not our witness.
And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth.
I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a flying roll. And he said unto me, What seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits. Then said he unto me, This is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. For every one that stealeth shall be cut off, as on this side according to it. And every one that sweareth shall be cut off, as on that side according to it. I will bring it forth, saith the Lord of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief, and into the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name.
The weird part about it is space is so incredibly black, so incredibly dark. It's a bottomless pit of deep black. Almost so deep it almost has a texture when you look at it.
Because in the Bible there's a place where there's darkness forever. It's called hell, heavily inspired.